Hello, today we are going to be going through some test revision for our contemporary food issues test. This PowerPoint has got exam style questions with perfect answers, but you can also do these by using the timers to copy down an answer and check it against the perfect answer. Don't forget to check the command word. So, starting off with a reminder, the two types of questions we will see in our test that we need to use our formulas for include an evaluation and an explain question. So just to remind you, an evaluation question must have an fact, an opinion and a consequence in your answer. Every question tells us three things. Thing one is the command word, and in this case, if it was an evaluation question, this is the formula we must use. Thing two is the mark allocation. If a question was worth 3 marks, then you would need to have 3 FOCs in your answer. The third and last thing that it would refer to is what you should be referring back to in your question. So, is that to do with a restaurant? Is it to do with a consumer? Whatever the question is asking you, you must make sure you're referring back to in your answer. When we talk about our consequences, we must have a but included in there. That means we must have the words because, as, therefore, or so to ensure that we are linking back to the question. This is an example of the correct layout for this question below. So if we were asked to evaluate the use of an organic ingredient in a restaurant menu, our fact would be that organic produce may be more expensive than non-organic, so it could be less accessible to those on a budget. That's a fact. Our opinion is that this is unsuitable, and a consequence, as people would then make the decision to not visit the restaurant, they would make less profit. We have then made sure that we have referred back to the restaurant in our answer, as well as including a but and made an opinion. Secondly, we've got an explain question. Very similar to an evaluate, however, we do not need an opinion. We still need to include a but in our consequence. And the mark allocation, if it was worth 3, we would need 3 FCs in our answer. So, our first question is, evaluate modified atmosphere packaged foods for the consumer. Every question tells us 3 things. Thing 1 is the command word, and in this case it is evaluate, which tells us we need to have an FOC in our answer. The second thing is the mark allocation, and in this case it's worth 1 mark, therefore I need 1 FOC. The third thing is what I am referring back to in my answer. In this case, it will be the consumer. This is a perfect answer that would gain us 1 mark for this question. So fresh food is sealed in a package containing a mixture of gases which slows down the oxidation and bacterial growth. This is good as the food will have a longer shelf life, reducing food waste for the consumer. I've referred back to the consumer. I have also made sure to have my opinion in here, and my fact is accurate about what MAP packaged foods are. So this would gain us 1 mark. So our next question is explain the impact of fair trade has on consumer food choice, and this is worth 2 marks. We know that every question tells us 3 things. Thing 1 is the command word. In this case, it's an explain, so we should have an F and a C as our formula. The second thing is the mark allocation. In this case, it's worth 2. Therefore, we need to have 2 F and C's in our answers. The third thing is who we are referring back to in our question, and in this case, it is a consumer. So we must have the word consumer in our consequence. This is our first perfect answer, worth 1 mark. So our fact about fair trade is there is an increasing range of fair trade products available, for example, bananas, coffee and chocolate. Our consequence, therefore, consumers will have more variety of fair trade products to choose from, so they are able to choose these products over normal versions of the products. That would be worth 1 mark. I have referred back to consumers in my consequence. I've used a but at the start of my consequence, making sure I'm referring back to the question. And my fact about fair trade products are accurate. Our next question is identify the pros and cons of organic foods for a consumer. This is worth 4 marks, and as always, every question tells us 3 things. Thing 1 is the command word. In this case, it's identify, which doesn't require us to have a fact and a consequence, or a fact, opinion, and consequence. We are simply asked just to state facts about organic foods. Our second thing is the mark allocation, and in this case, we need 4. So we split that to be 2 pros and 2 cons of organic foods. Here we have our 2 pros and 2 cons, which we would get 1 mark for each accurate and correct answer. So our first 2 are organic foods do not use any chemicals or pesticides to force grow them, so they are considered better for the environment. And organic foods ensure animals have lived a free range life. They are both 2 facts about what organic foods are and are considered to be a positive thing. Secondly, our 2 cons include organic foods can take longer to grow or harvest, and therefore aren't as ready available. And the cons are tend to be more expensive than non-organic foods. Our next question, we are asked to identify 3 organisations that protect the consumer. This is worth 3 marks, and as we know, every question tells us 3 things. Thing 1 is the command word, in this case it's identify, therefore we are stating a fact. The second thing is the mark allocation, so we need 3 answers. And the third thing is who we are referring back to. In this case, we don't need to refer back to because we are simply stating the answer. Our answer would be Environmental Health Department, Food Standards Scotland, and Trading Standards. Another identify question where we are stating facts about advantages and disadvantages of cooked chill foods, worth 2 marks, therefore we need to have 2 points. Here are some answers that you could have about cooked chill foods having a longer shelf life and being fully prepared, requiring only to be reheated. This would then save consumers time. And disadvantages include cooked chill foods can be higher in fat, salt, and sugar, and can be more expensive when buying for each family member rather than the individual ingredients. So, for example, if I were to be buying a lasagna cooked chill meal, it would be cheaper to buy a single lasagna portion for me rather than buying the individual ingredients to make a whole lasagna. Whereas if you were feeding a family of 4, to buy everybody an individual lasagna portion of a cooked chill product, then it would work out more expensive than buying the individual ingredients. So it would depend on who is in the question. Another identify question where we are gaining 6 marks for our 6 points that we could have. And these are all pieces of statutory labelling, which means labelling that must be on a food label by law. These include the name, the address of the manufacturer, any nutritional information, the date mark, which includes the best before and use by date, storage and cooking instructions, the weight of the product, place of origin, ingredients, and allergens. Next, we've got an explain question. Explain how food miles can have an influence on consumer food choice. Every question tells us 3 things. Thing 1 is a command word, which in this case is explain, which tells us our formula to answer this question must include an F and a C. Second thing is the mark allocation, so 2 marks means I must have 2 FCs in my answer. The third thing is who we are referring back to in our question. In this case, it will be the consumer, and we must have a detailed fact about food miles and a consequence linked to the impact of the fact for the consumer. Remember, these timers are here, so you can pause this just now and have a 4-minute timer for you to answer this question. We try to make it that each mark in a paper takes you roughly 2 minutes to answer. So this question's worth 2 marks, so it should take you 4 minutes to get these answers down on your paper. So you can pause it here, give yourself the time allocated and see how far you get. And here is a perfect answer that would get you 1 mark. So foods with high food miles can be imported from other countries when they are not in season, so they are available all year round. Therefore, consumers may choose to buy them as they have a greater choice of foods, for example, strawberries at Christmas time. So we've got an accurate fact, we've got our formula that we need, and I've linked back to the consumer and my consequence, and we've got a bat in the start of our answer as well. Secondly, we've got here foods with higher food miles can use lots of fuel, which produces carbon dioxide, contributing to global warming. Therefore, consumers may choose to avoid these as environmentally friendly consumers will not want to buy as they have a negative impact on the environment. Lastly, we've got 2 more questions here that you can work on independently. Every question tells us 3 things. Thing 1 is a command word, so you have an explain question here. The mark allocation is 2, so you would need 2 facts and consequences. And we are relating back to a food and consumer science department. Our last question is similar, but we are explaining how food additives can have an influence on the consumer. So our command word is explain, our mark allocation is 2, and we're referring back to a consumer in our consequence. I hope this helps, and if you have any questions, please make sure you speak to your class teacher.